But for more on those strange weather patterns, let's talk now to Professor Livhuwani Nemakonde from the School of Geo and Spatial Sciences at the Northwest University. Prof, good evening. Good to have you, and thank you very much for your time. Let's start firstly on this question that was raised by the government spokesperson. Speed, agility, release of resources, and government inaction. And as we hear, we've been seeing strange weather patterns in the country for the last decade at least. Is this how you would characterize our relief efforts and our response?
Thanks a lot, and thanks to all the viewers. Definitely that is what is needed on the ground. I'm not sure as to whether the government will be able to do that. But I mean, with the scenes that we have seen from parts of Mpumalanga and other parts of the country, definitely we need that quick response to what is happening with the flooding at the moment.
What do you think is leading us to these disasters? Is it just a mere fact that weather patterns are changing, or is it also a fact that we are building in places where we are not supposed to be building? Not only that, we are not building in a manner that we should be building.
Actually, you have just hit the nail on the head. What we are always saying is that, you know, the hazards that brings these disasters will always occur. They will always take place, be it floods or drought. But the risks and the impacts are mostly because of where we are building our houses, where we are locating our houses, the unconventional ways and the materials that we are using. I mean, if you look at most of the areas in most affected flood areas, those houses are built on river banks or in flood lines or even in flood plains. So whether the flood has happened some 20, 50 years ago, when we have enough rains, definitely it's going to come back. So the human element plays a major role in these disasters that we are seeing.
So if we are to be responding for the long term in a sustainable manner, and by all accounts, if we look at what the downpours were 10 years ago, they are now heavier. The rains are prolonged and they are heavier, which indicates to us the future of what we should expect as far as these downpours are concerned, is that they're going to be heavier and they're going to be even more prolonged. So if we are to be responding now for the future, what should we be focusing on?
I think what's very, very important is its planning. We have seen, I mean, our disaster management era or paradigm comes from the emergency management, wherein we were normally responding to disasters. But I think we need to start moving away from that and start preparing for these disasters before they happen. We need to put plans in place, mitigation plans in place before the disasters happen. Let's make sure that when we allocate places for building, those areas are safe and secure. It's not flood plains. Let's make sure that when we allow people to build, building codes are followed and they are enforced. And in that way, definitely we will be trying to reduce the risks and the impacts of the disasters that might happen.
These disasters, of course, have a huge impact also on our facilities, but also the schooling activities. What would be your advice there? Particularly, I mean, if you look at Mpumalanga, schools and hospitals, which probably are most needed during such disasters, were suspended because of the flooding.
No, definitely. I mean, when you've got disasters, you will find that most of the infrastructure are affected. And again, it goes back to where they are located. If they are not located in proper areas or in flood areas, definitely they are going to be affected. But one of the issues that is raised in terms of the Sendai framework for disaster risk reduction is once we have had the impacts of these disasters, definitely we should look at building back better, using reinforcements when we build. Let's build in areas that are far away from these disaster-prone areas. And once we do that, definitely the new structures will be able to withstand some of these phenomena that we are seeing.
Now, you raise a very important point, Prof, the question of allocations of unused budgets from several departments to respond to this disaster. Do you have confidence that there is such budgets that are available? I mean, as we speak, we've got two declared state of disasters, one to consolidate resources around the energy crisis. Do you think there is enough left in those reserves, for example, to respond to a crisis happening in 7 out of the 9 provinces?
One cannot say with confidence that we will have those kind of financial resources. But obviously, we don't necessarily have to look at government alone. Yes, government will reprioritize and allocate funds towards the assistance. But I think the private sector needs to play a major role as well here. We have seen during the COVID-19 pandemic, the country was also forced to go out into these international funders like the World Bank and the development banks, so that they can have enough financial resources. So in this regard, government can reprioritize, but that is not going to be enough. I think any assistance that might come from the private sector and from the civil society, if they've got resources that are needed, because it might not necessarily be financial resources only. I mean, some people might need to be relocated, others might need blankets, others need food. So everybody within the society definitely needs to contribute in these efforts to assist those who are affected.
In terms of contributions into these relief efforts, where are we sitting as far as the training and the development of our disaster management teams? One thing that we have seen, for example, around the response that the world is giving to Turkey and Syria is that those teams that are out there, by and large, very trained to be able to respond in rather difficult weather conditions, but also difficult geospatial designs that they're dealing with, where they're having to rescue people and having to bring the relief.
No, definitely we have quite a lot of managers who are capacitated to do that. Remember, this will bring together different field of expertise. Obviously, you will have disaster management that is there. It will bring in those who are in emergency management, and probably fire and rescue as well will be able to form part of this. We also know that in terms of resources, resources can also be released from the National Defense Force. So combining all different skills, I think we've got the capacity enough to assist those who are affected.
Prof, we appreciate your time. Thank you very much for coming on and expanding on this for us. Professor Livhuwani Nemakonde, there from the Northwest University of Geo and Spatial Sciences. When we continue next, the Democrat